All right, Articles of Confederation. And the first thing you probably notice when we take a look at that name, okay, is, at least the first thing I noticed, is the word Confederation, right? And it sounds a lot like the Confederates, a lot like the Confederacy, a lot like the Southern states that seceded from the Union, that seceded, that left the country during the Civil War, which sparked the Civil War. And if you saw that, you'd be right, because that's how they set up their government. The Southern states wanted to go back to a government that was more similar to the Articles of Confederation than to what the government that the Constitution created. And the reason that they wanted to do that was because, in general, there's this kind of cultural difference. And we talked earlier about how each region of our country is very different culturally. In the Southeast, there's this cultural leaning towards the state should be more powerful than the federal government. Okay, that I want to be ruled by my state. I don't really want to be ruled by DC. Now, during this period, we're going to find out that the original government put in place after the Civil War was a government called under the Articles of Confederation. And what it did was it created 13 independent countries that only came together in times of war. They did have a mechanism to pass some laws, but it wasn't a country. It was a league of friendship. It was similar to Europe today under the EU, where they have some way, some form of passing laws that apply to all of the countries, but largely each country is independent of the others. Okay, here in my slide that I put up, it's New York and Georgia, okay, and they're talking to each other. I don't know why I made it that way. And New York says, hey, we're an independent state, we're an independent country. Then we're only going to come together with the other 12 independent countries in times of war, and then only if we choose to, right? And Georgia says, us to leave us alone, we can do what we want. And a lot of historians look back at this period and they ask why. Why did our first government create 13 independent countries that only came together in times of war? And like I said, although there was a mechanism, there was a Congress, right? And in order to get a law passed, you needed 9 of the 13 colonies or independent countries at this point to vote to support that law. But why, right? Why was it like that? And the main reason is slavery. We're going to see that for the first 75, 80 years of this country, there was a constant debate between the southern states and the northern states over slavery. Now, we shouldn't pretend that the northern states were wholly against slavery in the late 1700s, okay? But generally speaking, the northern states, they just weren't farms. It's cold up there. Things don't grow well. So slavery wasn't a huge part of those states, although it was legal and there were slaves. Okay, let's keep that in mind. The southern states, though, were based on farming. The entire country, the entire states, which were independent countries, economy relied on farming, and they relied on free labor. And of course, that free labor was slaves. Okay, so we're going to see that in the writing of the Articles of Confederation, and specifically in the writing of the Constitution, slavery is the main determining factor in a lot of the things that today we look at and we say, why? Why did they create 13? They just fought a war against Britain for these ideas and a declaration that they all agreed on. Why now are we going to have 13 independent countries that only come together to fight wars? And the answer to that, and the answer to a lot of these early constitutional questions, we're going to find is slavery. Okay, so